Hello, Mike.
Hello, Jack. Happy Thursday and huge hiatus. But
Yeah,
as you've said, you've been making the world turn in the world of AI while I've been screwing around. So thank you.
just,
Thank you for
just,
doing that. Uh,
yeah,
you think if I took a week off that something monumental would happen in the world of AI and I'd be lost without your insight. So I'm glad to be back.
yeah. Glad to be back with you again, and just don't have too many groundbreaking observations from your humble, code writer, but maybe we can. But I've read some of your recent publications,
Oh, I'm
and
curious now. Wow. Okay.
yeah, you posted some of your thoughts recently, I think, on Medium.
Yes,
So I went
I
through that.
did.
I have to say, I am a little bit worried that you are radicalizing.
Yes, I'm definitely got I have a certain distaste, let's
Hmm,
say, for some of the hype. Now, as you and I both know, we are both 100% keen on this technology,
hmm.
right? This is beyond groundbreaking, really. I mean, it's the best, but how people use it is very interesting, right? That's the real fun part.
Yeah, yeah. And I think my question for you was that, yeah, so I think we agree that this is really kind of groundbreaking, and there is aspects of this of those inventions that we kind of talk about. But in your
Mhm.
paper, I think that you are kind of like rolling back maybe a little bit of your enthusiasm, and kind of maybe you are not really expecting the AI to move forward into maybe the quote unquote general intelligence, or quote unquote super intelligence, or however we want to call it. You are very skeptical about that. And
I am.
I think from my observations, I kind of see steady improvements, and I think that if we keep rolling that way, then perhaps I should disagree with you.
I think you might characterize me correctly, as you often do. One of the things that, as you just mentioned, and I think that's where you might have probably took offense at my poking fun at chess players, right? So I think the
Hmm.
idea of intelligence as a game is a bunch of crap, right? Like I don't think it's a game, right? Intelligence isn't an IQ test. It's not Nobel Prize winners. You see what I mean? These are the artifices that we have around intelligence that
Hmm.
Einstein, and to me, intelligence is actually just perseverance, lots of messy work, and lots of just curiosity in attempting to bring some insight into the world. In fact, I'm developing a course called AI for Insight or something. I don't know what I'm calling
Hmm.
it. But do you see what I mean? Insight is powerful because it's going to help everybody, right? It's an insightful idea that you brought about. It isn't from the smartest person in the world, even if that's a machine. And I do agree. I mean, I've been using AI very much lately, and I think these new models are, I just think they're as good as they're going to get, to be quite honest. Like, what context are you going to throw at it that it's not going to be smart, right? But is there veracity is now the new problem. Is it
Hmm.
truthful is not easy to understand, right? Is this
Hmm.
insightful is very hard to quantify, right?
Hmm.
Because it's certainly going to give you an opinion, and a good one, something maybe better than you or I, right? But is that opinion useful or insightful? Oh, I don't know. Look at the world we live in, right? It's very
Hmm.
puzzling now that insight does not seem to be highly valued, you know? And that to me is that a good caveat? I don't know. Do you still disagree? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I think I do. And maybe that is going to be a longer discussion, maybe for more than one meeting, right? But if
That's why we're
if
here.
if let's say we assume that we are, let's say, having a conversation with AI, right?
Mhm.
And the AI is kind of giving us answers, right? So you type a question, and maybe the AI is going to provide maybe a page long answer. That answer in itself is just, like a tiny bit of what the AI has access to at a very sophisticated level, right? So it's more than search. I like to think about what the AI is capable of doing is it has the capability of finding those long range relationships in the training data that it has insight into, right? So but if let's say the conversational format or even text to document or whatever
Yeah.
is something that the AI is constrained with, then it's really kind of like being suffocated by the format of the conversation. However, if now we try to kind of build the AI systems without that kind of a constraint, where it's going to kind of be able to have a conversation with itself, and maybe instead of extracting just one page, it's going to extract, a million pages, right?
Sure.
And have a internal conversation with that, right? And then it's going to be able to maybe put a logical layer on top of that, right? And then maybe it's going to be able to put qualitative analysis on top of that, right? And then maybe a planning layer of that on top of that. Then we are talking about something that in the cognitive science is known as a system two architecture. So Kahneman and other people were kind of looking into this and basically say, hey, so how do you learn? Well, maybe you learn because you have those new relationships that you internally develop. Maybe you kind of are able to plan better, right? As a kind of like thinker, right? Maybe you are able to find the new qualities that you are looking for, that you formulate them better, and you question yourself, like, hey, here's what I'm looking really for. And then maybe quantitatively, you are also maybe digesting different chunks, in a different way. So taken together, that with an AI as a kernel, as an engine processing all that stuff, I think that is the architecture that is probably much more optimistic than let's say what you see.
Well, I don't actually, I mean, honestly, I think there's been a lot of breakthroughs. I mean, certainly the deep seek model, right, of kind of more elaborate prompt architectures built off of maybe terse or confusing ones. You know what I mean? Like being able to elaborate and give better vector things into something. What I'm gonna probably say is, me, I'm trying to unpack the secrets of the universe sort of thing. And remember, everything's a waveform. This is the problem. Like anything that is going to be finite, like a result from an AI, is fine, but it starts to it starts to be like this game thing. Like I'm going to win or lose this game of chess, right? Now, while I'm making decisions, it could or can and will like help me make decisions because it knows the end result of the game, right? It's pretty cool. Hey, this game has a winning outcome. Let's say though that you're bringing something new into it, which is again maybe not, there is no game, there's nothing to win. It's like business is a good one, right? What is your goal as a business? Is to survive. To survive is actually challenging, right? You need to staff correctly, build, have the right stuff for the people to do correctly, get business. You know what I mean? I can't even imagine how complicated a business is, right? But you happen to know that it's also going to be judged on a wave. It's never going to be the same. It isn't going to be like, hey, we need to meet Q2 results. Therefore, AI, tell us what to do in it. And your model, absolutely, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic at giving you a plan. Well, now you have to execute the plan. And of course, whenever variables come into play, then that's usually what throws people off, right? Bill didn't get his thing done on time that made so-and-so mad because, by the way, sorry to call out this, but I'm trying to meet with somebody. And it's like, it's been the most elaborate amount of work I think I've ever done to not meet with someone. You see what I mean? So therefore, does AI understand this? No, it would just say meet with so-and-so. You see what I mean? Like it's going to collapse to a reasonable extent, the world as we know it, but the world as we know it isn't collapsible, right? It isn't a game because, well, I'll stop there. Do you see where I'm getting at? Like this is where AI could never compete with people because we're constantly resampling, right? We resample almost so much that I think we're almost having trouble with it because we keep wanting more information and not knowing what to do with it most of the time, right? Like
Mm.
we want more to be able to find that choice or something, but knowing what to make for dinner tonight, Jack, is still a challenge to you, you
Mm.
know? And even if your LLM can have every piece of info at its fingertips, it's still getting you to make dinner and enjoy it is kind of beyond it, and it should be, right? Because that isn't a game, right? That is just a process of which we go through. Boy, I see now. See how philosophical you got me this quickly back into our
Mm.
into our discussion. Now, go ahead, shoot it down. I know over romanticizing people, right?
Well, I mean, so let's assume that that we are talking about, well, we do, right? About this very
Yeah,
highly tuned biological machines, our biological brains that
yeah.
that are capable of all those things that you are describing, and we are really tuned to. I mean, you have a very rich life, right? You are considering things, you're kind of looking at different perspective. Don't you think that this type of a tune-up, life tune-up, right? Like attitude to life, and all this affective reasoning that you are performing, don't you think that it's actually possible to tune a silicon machine to that kind of a process? I think we may have the kernel that is capable of processing that. So all these layers of sophistication that you are talking about are, something that perhaps is very doable.
As I said, I'm certainly not going to rule anything out. I'm just sort of I'm concerned about the cost. That's basically it. And also concerned about these people ripping us off, which they are, by the way. I mean, they are ripping us off, and they
Mhm.
know they're ripping us off, right? I mean, the greed alone is enough motivator to make up tons of stuff.
Mhm.
Now, if it came down that something about our humanity and society and our culture was benefiting
Mhm.
right from these machines, then count me in, right? But to me, that's the what do they call it, the last mile or something? You know what I mean? Like you can solve every problem, but that last mile problem it's almost insurmountable problem. That to deliver things at scale to everyone, is that
Mhm.
branching logic that even I think, that's where hallucinations come in AI, right? Like it can go off on a tangent. It probably doesn't
Mhm.
as much anymore because they've probably locked it down pretty well. But I've started to see that different models are definitely trained toward different behaviors, and that's gaming to me, right? Like
Mhm.
they've already gamed it what in 3.0 to be ultra complementary, and that's what most people rail against now. They're like, "Oh my God, you got the best idea ever," and I'm like, yeah, I do. I have the best idea. So thank you for noticing AI. But it's sort of we're not used to that, right? We're used to our smart people being dismissive of us, right? Like, well, if you just studied harder, Jack, you would have
Mhm.
gotten this answer right, is kind of the way most people feel. Or that I'm not smart enough to do X is the way most people feel, right? And they put a lot of effort. Unfortunately, I think they put a lot of effort, more effort sometimes than learning the thing to cover up their lack of knowledge of a thing, right? Because it becomes so hard sooner or later to be encouraged to be stupid. I call it that because I'm like, I'm sorry, dumb. Dumb means you have no idea, right? You're just gonna try it and hey, I burnt my hand. Dumb, right? If you did it again the exact same way, then you're stupid. Right? Because it's this idea that you do have to try things and you don't know. And having this oracle, I keep thinking of it that way, right? I mean, it's kind of this oracle, right? I don't know, and I write about this, right? Can it teach you not to be dumb? No, I think you kind of need to be dumb. That's your role in this universe, is to try things that you don't know how they're going to work, to maybe it goes into our adventures in Portugal, which I had no real plan. No day was planned. We kind of ended up in a place and we wanted to explore the place. And most of the time it worked out perfectly, almost all the time, actually. It
Mm,
was great. But the thing is that could I have used an LLM to make sure that I didn't need to plan? And I was like, well, that would defeat the purpose, right? Like I wanted it to be an adventure. And if you're
mm,
running a business and you have a small team of whatever's, you know what I mean? You want them to engage personally in the world you're in, right? Like you don't want to tell them here's the right way to do it. See, the super smart thing told you how to code. Although, boy, coding, man, is getting a little rough. I will tell you, it really does tell you how to code, and it's really good now because I just fired up doing some crazy data viz, you know,
mm,
apropos of nothing. But if you're not into Jupyter notebooks and stuff, I'm like, this thing is really good at
mm.
making something really, really complicated fairly simple. Perhaps am I late to this party? I am, right?
No, no, no. That's exactly kind of where I am, right? I'm seeing the
Yeah.
improvements maybe in that area of AI that is like most affected, which is the automation of coding tasks. And that's
Insane.
maybe 90% of my enthusiasm is really kind of based on the quality of the code that I'm seeing coming from AI, and I'm extrapolating a little bit. But coming back to your idea about being able to kind of have a freedom, right? Personal freedom,
Yeah.
kind of traveling. Don't you think that the AI is kind of going to be the enabling technology? Uh, I'm kind of reminded of the sci-fi, one of the sci-fi authors, Jack McDewitt,
Mhm.
Nebula winner and multiple kind of awards. Really great writer. And in his world, AI is kind of like maybe 10 years ahead of today, where
Okay.
everybody's got an avatar, everybody's got like an online presence, quote unquote, right? There is basically the society is enabled to do what you are doing, right? So the society in his sci-fi world is kind of like what you are describing your travels where okay, well, the AI is going to do the heavy lifting, and we have the freedom to actually go somewhere and not plan the trip, and have that, you know I don't want to put this into the economical kind of frames, but uh, really you can see that the society, doesn't need truck drivers unless somebody wants to drive a truck, right? The society doesn't need to kind of do dangerous jobs unless somebody wants to do a dangerous job. You see, so perhaps this is our kind of like platform where we can agree that AI, kind of evolving into general intelligence that is going to kind of guide the robots, and it's going to kind of create autonomous systems uh, that will give us that freedom to kind of experience maybe more. What do you think?
Well, I think, well, for certainly we're not that far off, right? I mean, you're right
Mm,
that in certain realms, I mean, it's absolutely beyond impactful, beyond, right? Because
mm,
the ability to think at higher levels is really important. Like, what's for dinner tonight is a really important question, but most Americans right now can't handle that question and therefore default to, I would say, unnutritious and whatever food. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about
mm,
food, but you see what I mean. We
mm,
convenience size. I was just watching a great film from the past. It's called I Am Cuba. Speaking of my leftist tendencies, but it starts out with just people in a village, and then it goes to sort of this rock and roll thing where Cuba is all about whatever. But the thing about the village was that people were spending a lot of time washing clothes, right? So here's the thing. We might not realize, but the world for most of its time was pretty dirty. Like there was a lot of dirt everywhere. And when you had clothing, if you needed clothing to both present yourself and to be looking civilized, right? We couldn't wear loincloths. They would get dirty quick. And most of the labor in our world was clothes washing. It's insanely hard labor that must be done constantly. And so you had this time, and I wrote about it once because this guy said that once his mom got a washing machine, which were new inventions, she said this machine is a library. Basically, I can now spend time in the library reading books that I used to have to spend time washing clothes. He said it better, and I messed this up. But you get the idea, is that that ability to detach yourself from necessary social labors, whether I happen to know that people like driving trucks, weirdly enough, like it's relaxing to them. I don't know, who knows? But, if you enjoy it, some people enjoy deep sea welding, which apparently most dangerous job ever or something like that. But, it also pays well, and that people like money, right? And so I think this is complicated, right? And that our my warning is still about the gamesman thing. Like if we treat everything as a game, then it can be won by a computer. And that's why it's fun with the computer doing a lot of the coding. It's like, I don't really care about this code. I care about the outcome. Is this outcome worthwhile? Is it valuable, right? Is it helping me toward my goal? It isn't that I want to sit there and figure out my problem with syntax. It's like, also now, did you know this NPM thing where you just reach out into the universe and it pulls in libraries? I mean, I'm just amazed at how sophisticated some really hard problems are now, because there's, I can actually ask it. I'm like, hey, set me up a instance of Jupyter Notebook to run here with this. You know what I mean? Computers are really complicated. Just to say, guys, if you think they're not, they really, the way they run is insanely complicated. These now new tools, at least for me, who I dabble in code, make it really easy for me to come in and get ideas out pretty quickly, and even incredibly sophisticated ideas, because I don't screw around, right? But I'm happy that I don't have to spend months learning syntax. You know what I mean? In fact, I've got these new things, these new AirBud things. So apparently now you put these in your ears, someone talks, and it translates it in real time into your language. And if they're wearing them, it goes back and forth.
Yeah, there goes another profession, right? I mean, a lifetime learning of foreign languages and translation.
Well, interestingly enough, I try my best at Portuguese. I'm sorry, I'm still terrible, but yeah, but that's really hard. I studied Japanese for 5 years and I'm terrible at Japanese. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not that good. My wife might be better. You're probably better. Some people have the brains for it. I kind of don't have the brain for it to be idiomatic like that. Like, oh, this means this. And, like, you have to really wire yourself for it. So I am happy for our robot overlords to help me understand another human being that I can't really understand. So I did download Spanish because I think that would be really interesting now to be a little bit more cognizant. I do know some, but right, I'm not in a situation where I get to use it that much. Anyway, tangent. Back to game playing. You see what do you agree? Because if you and I believe that novels and such are really good at this, because it has to be a game, it's a book, it has to have a beginning and an end, it has to go somewhere. So there's always this sort of narrative game where real life to me isn't a narrative game. That's what I'm saying. Like, it is different. And therefore, I think there's just a limit to where this tool will take us, but I don't think there's a limit to how much it can be hyped as going to take over, and all of our jobs all this stuff can easily be hyped, yet it kind of can't occur ish. Okay. Anyway.
Well, so so I'm going to be risking a little bit to get hyper philosophical, and so let's go back to the philosophy of gaming, right? So
Yeah.
in this in this movie, Beautiful Mind, there's the
Hmm.
scene where John Nash, and that's the character that Russell Crowe plays. He's sitting in a bar and he's looking at an attractive girl that walks into the room, and it's kind of looking at who is in the bar, and he is analyzing that situation using his famous equilibrium kind of principle, which is a game theoretic principle about what are the relationships between people, what is the tactical and strategic situation in the social circumstances, but it can be also transferred into other areas. So don't you think that what you are talking here is you are still talking about the game, because game theory probably can capture any situation. You just don't want fixed set of rules. You would like to change the rule set depending on the contextual situation you are in, but you are still within the game, whether you like it or not. What do you think about that, right? I mean, that there's,
That's good.
like in game theoretic situation, right? You may have, for example, a zero-sum game versus non-zero-sum game. You might have an equilibrium situation, but maybe you want to escape the equilibrium. So at some point, you might just want to switch to a different game, and maybe the AI is going to be smart enough to actually do that also, where, hey, what's for dinner is a different game comparing to what do I have to do today to make some money, or what do I have to do today to find my favorite cigar, right? And all those is still a game theoretic play that we are playing. It's just that, for us it's not conscious for sure, but for the AI it might be. But still, like I always say, affective reasoning is one of the easier things that computers can do, and you tend to disagree with that because it's not real, right? And I say probably, oh, it's maybe close enough.
Well, great points, and absolutely, I have a huge soft spot for game theory. Although, actually, we can talk about this later, but my new concern is renormalization, like how something that's unusual can get shifted into being usual, and that renormalizes things. I don't know. This is probably part of Nash's idea, right? But um, because, as I said, we are seeking normalization all the time, right? We don't like extremes, and we don't want there to be these discontinuities, right? It's annoying, and it takes a lot of effort, and we're lazy when we like to not expend energy. That's kind of our thing, right? That's the universe. The universe doesn't like to waste energy, and neither do we. So, when it comes down to this idea, though, of winning a game, I think that might be that things are finite. To me, we don't have the world yet, and maybe in sci-fi it does, where you've got is it an infinite token window? Right?
Mm.
Like once you take a token window at birth, all bets are off. Does that make you happier? What I mean is that things aren't right now, things are finite, right? Here's contextual window number one. Here's maybe, how people are pretty lazy with AI, right? They don't give a dialogue to it. They usually give it a Google search, and they want an answer and then they're fine. Whereas me, I go on long conversations. And now it's funny because my GPT instance quotes me, right, when I talk about something else, because it knows it has this. It's not a huge context window, but it's pretty good, right? And I've invented words with it. So it's like you and me, like we have shared references now because we've built these token windows. So there, Jack, come on. I hoisted you on that one, right? Because how big is the context window, right? We're not even close right now, I think, to understanding what that would mean. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think
Or is it Markov? We don't need a context window. It's Markov. You only have to know the very last thing that happened. There you go. See there, it's either or. It's either or.
I think you are going in a direction when you started talking about, the tokens at birth and all bets are off, you were dangerously going into this kind of like a destiny kind of deal, like, hey, you have only so many tokens, and you may kind of mix them up a little bit, but you are going in a certain direction.
Well, I just mean, hey, you spend a year and you take one class and you get a grade, right? That's like a token. That's all I mean. Like, that isn't reality. That doesn't have anything to do with you, but it's meaningful to you. Hey, if you got a F in that class, it probably discourages you from taking pottery, you know what I mean? Or whatever, right? Like, but these are games in my world. You know what I mean? Like, they're finite. And just like if I went in and said, what's the capital of Spain? And I'm whatever. Or what's a good way to, oh, how about this? Look at this. So I've got this thing right now. I track my sleep, right? And this is really interesting because I get a ton of data. And I've never known how to deal with the data particularly, but Apple's trying to. So now it kind of gives you a score. Speaking of a game, it gives you a score on your sleep last night. And my puzzle with this, and maybe you have an idea here, is so what? Like, I can't use this information to make me sleep better. You see what I mean? Like, it's inherently kind of, it's okay to know, but unless you are changed and you start to act differently, which might be, it kind of says go to bed on time. I mean, you can game the score is what I'm getting at, like once you know the game, you can win the game. You see what I mean? Except when it comes to sleep. Like, I can't will myself to sleep constantly throughout the night, which will increase my score. So that's where I'm saying it has a contextual limitation, even though you got fantastic data, and this is not AI, but you know what I mean? Like, you've got a fantastic model that knows everything about jurisprudence. It can't always know how to deal with situation X. And situation X to me is the only situations you're in, right? You're never in an ideal situation. And if you had the little AI plugin in your Ray-Ban glasses and it said, hey, hot chick coming in, tell her, that you met her in class. You see what I mean? Like, if it was somehow Cyrano de Bergeracing you into being a better person and that worked, well, that's just weird, actually. But you know what I mean? Like, that's not utopia for all, right? That's just gaming and manipulation using, I don't know, it looks you up on the internet and your name is Jane. You see what I mean? That's the sci-fi version of this stuff, right? Like, we don't need to have actual experiences. We just need the info so that we don't screw up and we get what we want. And I'm against all that. Sorry. I'm like, no, come on. You can't. Yes, you can convince everybody to give you lots of money. Good for you. I wish I could do that, but I'm bad at that. Sorry, Jack. I wish I was better at that.
Well, yeah, you are a little pessimistic, right? I mean,
humans, man.
For me, the sleeping data example is a little bit easy actually to kind of use, right? Because let's say I have a data set, right? And let's say I have an AI assistant. The AI assistant may have access to some kind of medical knowledge, right? Maybe nutrition, maybe if it finds that you are waking up 3 times at night, maybe it will recommend maybe magnesium or some other supplements to kind of maybe make you sleep a little bit calmer and longer and things like that. So I'm not sure if you would call it a game or a bad game, right? And maybe there is good games and maybe there is bad games, right? But
it's got a score. It's got a score. It seems like a game. I don't know.
Yeah, but if you can increase your score, through some sort of a positive influence on your life, then my question would be, why not, right? I mean, is that going to be useful?
You're I like you. I guess I wasn't trying to say I'm pessimistic, but I completely think you're on the right track, especially, for example, let's say I was wearing some earphones and it knew that some sort of peak noise or something like that delivered when this was going south might ease you back into sleep. Who knows, right? Like, who
Yeah.
knows? And just like I would assume that that's what maybe ideally treatments in a hospital is like, right? Like, hey, I kind of know that when your heart stops pumping, that I should give you some saline, or see what I mean? Like, there can be automated responses to situations which can be hugely beneficial, right? Rather than figuring out yourself. So no argument, and very positive. So I just meant information wise, it doesn't help me. You see what I mean? And if I got the girl because I mentioned her name and then we got married later and whatever, am I going to say, like, oh, yeah, I cheated and used AI to meet you for the first time? They'd probably say, whatever, it doesn't matter because now we have much more context than that to work with. But I do think that that contextual token or whatever it is like a new thing. It is a thing now that we'll have to wrestle with, right? Personally, that if I want the um sycophantic version, because I heard a interview with a favorite and composer of mine, Brian Eno. I don't know if you like or know Brian Eno, but really good interview with Ezra Klein, and he uh, kind of poo-pooed AI because he said that it was very bland. Like it was just very meh to him, right? It didn't seem like real stuff, because real stuff can be prickly and confusing and edgy. Or I don't know. It's a really good interview and it's worth listening to. But I'm sitting there listening to that, and I'm like, well, he said, I know that people tell it, don't be sycophantic, like don't compliment me. Don't, like, they have a preamble, right, of how they want AI to engage with them. And cool. But as I said, this context window, if it follows you around, like, is that something that you can train over years? We've been at it for a year, right? And I've definitely trained GPT over a year. In fact, I stopped paying. And by the way, they stop updating your context window if you stop paying. So there's that. You only get so many tokens in your what they call the shared history. And I read the shared history and it wasn't terrible, right? It's kind of like I could have written it, but it wrote it for me based on being AI and being clever. And that's what I like, because I'm a user experience person. People do not like to put in any effort whatsoever, right? That's the baseline. They want what they want and they don't know what it is. So the more you can help them, ease them into things, make choices easier, make paths easier to understand, the more they'll engage. So unlike you and I just do everything I can to piss you off, Jack, because I respect you so much that you can always fight back, right? But you see what I mean? If we were just complimenting each other constantly, to me, I'm like, well, what's the fun in that, right? Like I want, and he wanted the AI to do that. You see what I mean? And it doesn't, kind of. It doesn't like to pick a fight. And whatever that means, that's all. It wants you to feel like you're winning, and I think that's great up to a point. But sooner or later, I had to ask it today. It's like, what are the big objections that people would have? And the objections that everyone had was longer than the thing I was working on. And it was, it was still good, but I'm like, oh man, these people are hard to convince, Jack. How do you convince them that you're the greatest? It's hard, right? I mean, they're kind of geared against it. But as I said, in our own worlds, in our own games, we'll be much easier. I think it will be much easier to placate because we're not that, as people, we're not that picky. We'll eat a frozen pizza for dinner and be pretty happy about it. Whereas I've been in Portugal and it's like, oh, this fancy meal didn't compare to this other fancy meal. It's like, my normal got changed, and now it's like, oh, no, I got to renormalize. Now I'm back in this other place, right? Normal is different here.
Yeah, well, maybe we are not kind of the best kind of like audience or people who kind of like raise the issues, because despite your best efforts, you are not lazy, and neither am
I
I.
tried.
And
I tried.
and despite your best efforts and mine, we kind of tend to work hard, I guess. And kind of we are curious, and we are doing so many different things, and we have our hobbies even though we don't have to do those things, and we have our passions even though maybe out of laziness we shouldn't, right? And then we have our own limitations, like we can assimilate only three things at a time at most. Right, so
It's true. It's
perhaps
it's interesting. Yeah.
so perhaps we shouldn't kind of venture into those territories that we have no ideas about. Maybe we should kind of think about, okay, so here's somebody like you and I, that are constantly busy, and we are definitely dabbing into this AI stuff, right? Maybe we should embrace it more. I mean, maybe you. I think I have a lot more, but yeah, I mean, even despite your best efforts, you are embracing the concept of AI, and you're building your profile,
Oh,
and you're kind of, yeah. So even though maybe this is not a game, or you don't like the game, I think it is, and it's here to stay with us, whether we escape or not. I mean, there might be no escape, at least for us.
well, I just don't, back to your initial point, which I think you said we disagreed about AGI or whatever that might mean. And I mean, I'm still saying AGI is a game, right? It's a score. It's an artificial whatever, because there is no agreed upon superhuman intelligence score, as far as I know, right? Like it wasn't needed, because having a smartest person in the world has never really been that necessary. You know what I mean? We don't have the need for some brainiac that you somehow give the question to. You remember the old kings where it's like, okay, you just stole my land. Well, you slept with my daughter. You know what I mean? And the king would be like, you will pay 2 goats. You will, I don't know. Anyway, this is to me the idea of the superhuman intelligence as some sort of benevolent ruler thing, I guess. I don't know. Because what would you need it for, right? Unless you're saying, hey, we need super intelligence to tell us how to build our fusion reactors on our um, farms, so we don't need power anymore. Well, and then it's going to be out of its element, because like, I don't know, I give up. I don't, or maybe it's going to give you a huge instruction list. I have no idea what AGI would do if indeed our idea is that if by being smart you solve problems. And I'm like, no, problems are solved through serendipity and consensus and mutual respect, and all these other, being in the right place at the right time. I mean, having the resources available like a washing machine. These are the realities of life. Like, if you don't have the ability and time, you don't need intelligence. I just heard this whole lecture about Faraday, who smart guy, but he was nobody, and he was from poverty, and he apprenticed to be a bookbinder, and apparently that gave him a lot of real tactile skills with his hands, and he was also very bright, but he was super poor and nobody cared. But there was the lecturer, or the head of the National Society or whatever, the big professor, was doing a series of lectures to quit and go retire or something like that. And somebody that Faraday knew, he said, oh, I think Faraday would really like these lectures. So I'm going to get him tickets, the hottest ticket in town, right? I'm going to get him tickets to go see it. And Faraday, who was a bookbinder, built all these blank books so that he did go and take copious notes of the presentations, and later presented it to this guy. And then the guy was like, oh, okay, you should come over and be part of the faculty and the assistants, and then the rest was history. You see what I mean? That's completely random. right? Like almost total randomness led to Daniel Faraday being, well, he's Daniel Faraday, man. He's like a hero. But that's what
Mm.
I mean. Like that's what I'm getting at with this weird super intelligence. Like he was intelligent, but he didn't have it was all luck that he ended up using his super intelligence. Does that and his tactile skills, because apparently he isolated benzene or something. That's the big deal, and benzene's a big deal. But you see what I mean? Like you needed to have gone through the bookbinding so that
Mm.
you would have the skills. You know, it's just like a lot of mathematicians or piano players, right? Because you need to understand the math
Mm.
of music to apply it to this other kind of math. And even now they were talking about chemical notation, right? We have boxes and arrows. I'm like, we need something now better than boxes and arrows because really the world is different than this. But because we put it in this format, people start to accept it and they forget, and that's why I love the YouTube world, is that they now turn it into a 3D model, and now that's how I can understand for Fourier, fast Fourier transformations, right? Because it's this thing spinning, right? And every so often all the numbers and all the sine and cosines and whatever align, and then they don't, and that's so much more intuitive than a piece of paper. And that was the only way we could understand this at one point, right? Like if you didn't understand this notation, you cannot understand this topic. And to me, if we're going to end on a high note, that is a
Mm.
miracle of generative AI. Is it can generate it in the way that you can start to understand it. And
Yeah.
then the world is your oyster, right? And that's what's happening with me is I'm trying to figure out how noise makes bubbles that take 2D and turn it into 3D. And so I'm asking it, and it's building out Python code that does it in 1D and then I can bring it into 3D. You know, I'm like, this stuff is really hard, but it's not hard for you, AI, but you still need me to guide you, I guess is the point, right? Like
Mm.
it doesn't do anything on its own. So
Yeah.
therefore, it's this relationship that we both adore, right? Because it's great to be able to play. And that's my next topic. I am gonna have to, we have to end because it's once again another episode in the can, man. But
Time
I'm
flies.
developing strategic insights with AI, IDS 459. So here's this course I'm starting to develop, Jack. You're going to be a big help on this one
All right.
because, I'm trying to say, how do you make decisions based on qualitative data? Right? And I'm starting because my inspiration is, have you ever done two truths and a lie?
Mm.
It's an icebreaker somewhere where you meeting new people and they're like, okay, you guys, I'll go around in a room, you say two truths and a lie about yourself. And then people have to
Oh.
figure out what's the lie. And to
Okay,
me,
good one. Good one.
this is strategic insights with AI, right? How do you tell the lie? You know, and that to me is maybe back to our whole topic, right? Like it it's not that it isn't amazing, but what's a lie? You know, what's a truth? You see what I mean? And that's where intelligence is sometimes in the worst situations manipulative, right? Lie about everything. Never seems to get old, right? Like works most of the time, which is surprisingly, but the truth part,
Mm.
I just wanted to give it to Dennis Hassabis and all these people that just really irk me because it's like if you make it into a game and you win the game, you have to go back. Was it really a game? You know what I mean? No, it wasn't a game. You made it into a game. And that's, I think, a way to get people interested and get people to give you money. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
we're going to win the Genius Award Prize. All you need to do is fund us. And look how close we are. We're only 10 points away. And I'm like, this is, that's the point. You'll never get the 10 points, because it's not a game.
Mm.
Sorry. I hate to wrap things up, but I have the urge for the dramatic. Sorry, Jack, you can do a better job than I can.
No, I think this is great. I mean, I think I'm beginning to understand, your concept, right? When you say that something is a game, and then when you say that something is not a game, right? I mean, this is really philosophical, and yeah, I mean, there is, my engineering approach to pretty much everything is, hey, can I create a model of something that is there versus can I create a model of something that is not there? And this is like two different sides of the same coin, because the answer will
Yes,
be yes, I can have a model that creates something that is not there.
agreed. And to great benefit of everyone, because the people who did that invented the world we're in. You see what I mean? Like, it wasn't shown, it wasn't obvious, but I want to celebrate the Teslas, not Tesla, but the Tesla, who was completely like in another realm and an incredible failure. You know what I mean? Like, that's the beauty of it, but he didn't care. I mean, that's the whole point, right? He was there he really wanted truth. He
Yeah.
wanted to understand the ununderstandable, which is fantastic. And as much as I love Einstein, if it wasn't for geometry, man, but you know what I mean? Like, the constraints sometimes have to be there. Models are great, right? They're the language you must know how to read. That's what I'm saying. Like, you must know this language to understand this topic. But I'm like, no, I think now we're in a world where you don't need to learn this language to understand this topic. I've got a thing in my thing, it'll translate and I can have a conversation with you in another language, right? And
Mm.
does it matter that this is doing this work? No, it's about communicating, So if we can get over our language problems and AI helps us, that's I think our goal together, because it definitely can, right? Like, it
Yeah.
is more capable than ever. It's miraculous, right? How capable it is at translating, you know? But I
Mm.
don't know that it's actually truthful yet. Next week.
Yep. Definitely to be continued.
It's good to be back. Thank you,
Yeah.
as always. Thanks for anyone who's watching. Leave a comment, subscribe, I don't know, whatever. I'll definitely promote this one. I really enjoyed the convo. Great to be back,
Yeah.
Jack.
Me too. Great to be back. Yeah. Talk to you soon.
All right. Cheers
Bye.
and scene.